Welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, where you'll hear sports stories you might not have heard about from people you might not have heard of. Let's get into this week's show.
G'day, Extra Timers, and welcome in once again to another podcast. Well, it's a pretty gloomy and wet day in Melbourne today as we record, so it's a brilliant day to do a podcast. But unfortunately for me, another weekend of following sport, another weekend of being heartbroken. It seems at the moment, Woods, I just end up walking in on a Wednesday and being pretty flat.
Well, I don't think you're the only one this week. Obviously, my Saints didn't get the job done. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but how are you feeling? Obviously, Hawthorn expected to get the loss in a different type of game, but the NBL, I don't know how else to bring it up. I was choking up a bit there, kind of choking up in a good way because, you see, I'm a Southeast Melbourne Phoenix fan and we haven't done too well. And so just seeing United not win the championship is good. Obviously, it's a newer team than Phoenix that have won it, which is the negative, but the positives do outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, it was a tough watch, and we'll go into that later. We'll have a whole segment where I can go and rant for as long as I want, and if you want to tune out, you can, or if you want to listen and agree with me, as I'm sure you will, in my disappointment, you can do that then. But at the end of the day, Woods, there was comments, obviously you said you don't have to come in and do the pod if you don't want to, because understandably, I was pretty flat, especially after the last 2 weekends I've had. But I said straight away, no, I'll stand on it. I'll stand up, and I'm that sort of guy. Losing's part of life and part of sport. And I just think, Woods, I've been pretty greedy since I was a kid. In pretty much every sport, I've been pretty darn lucky. As soon as I started really following footy,
Here we go.
I saw my Hawks win a couple flags, just a few. And since, F1 took over, I had the grace of Max Verstappen, Lakers through the great sort of, Kobe Bryant, LeBron, and, the Seahawks are usually in and around there. And United, I saw a win a championship when I was really started following the NBL quite hard, a couple of years ago. So really, I haven't really experienced the other side of it. And I do know that life's like a roller coaster, and it really is. Like, I love the part where you go up to the top.
I wish I had had your life.
You can't have that part unless you go and you dip. And I'm totally okay with my teams dipping at the moment. Obviously, Hawks in a rebuild quite clearly. The Lakers, the end of LeBron's career, if that's even a thing. The Seahawks are rebuilding, first time in ages, new coach. Max, I'm not saying he's done. I really hope he's not. But obviously, witnessing him not win a race, and now United, when after the season they had, dominating everybody, losing as well. And I think it's really good for you. I've been reading a bit on my 75 hard challenge, and a lot of what I've been reading is, losing really makes you. So I'm not that sort of person that's going to go and really be really disappointed about it and knock off all my commitments and not go and see anybody. As much as it consumes my life sport, you got to get used to losing, because I'm quite used to winning. And ever since I was a kid, that's basically all I've been experiencing. So it's new to me, yes. I'm flat, yes, but I'm welcoming it. And the good thing is, Woods, it wasn't a completely horrible weekend, because my Inverloch Comac Eagles got the job done, unveiled 4 of their premiership flags and got some wins on the board. And on a beautiful day down in Inverloch on Easter Saturday. So it's not all lost. At least I've got the Seagulls at the moment. But yeah, sport is what it is, mate. But yeah, the footy on the weekend, again, I didn't see all of it. Like I said, had a few commitments down locally with the country footy starting back up, but I'm not real happy about it. It wasn't great for both of our points of view in terms of our teams,
I think
it wasn't great footy either.
I was going to say, I think it comes back to your thing. I'll just get it up right now. This sums up my weekend. Bad kicking is bad football. Whether it's a goal, whether it's Riley Bonner with 17 turnovers, bad kicking is bad football.
Yeah, mate, I could not have said it better myself. And if you go back and watch last week, skip to this segment, and I was absolutely ecstatic. I wasn't quite fully happy again, because I was coming off that weekend where United were in a 2-1 hole, Max had crashed out and that sort of thing. But man, I was happy. I'm like, finally the AFL has realised they've listened to me. I've bullied them enough. Constructive criticism, sorry. I've given them enough constructive criticism on the pod that they've listened to me, and the kicking was phenomenal. And what happens next? I went too early, Woods. And now, I don't know what the stats were for the whole round. I don't really want to look at it, but I think there was maybe 2 games where both teams actually kicked at least half their shots through the middle 2 sticks. I could not believe what I was seeing, and it started on Thursday night. Now, it's taking everything in my power to not give this mob the award this week. But Brisbane, come on. I could not care less what is happening or not happening allegedly off the field. This is a grand final rematch on your deck. Collingwood were horrendously down bad. Everyone had completely picked them apart, knew exactly how to play them. It's your turn with your lineup that's a league best on paper. You don't lose at the Gabba. I can't explain how big of a game this was. And in the second quarter, they tore the pants off Collingwood. Collingwood did not score. You know how often that happens, Woods? I think I heard over the radio maybe 3 times this century. Like barely ever you keep Collingwood scoreless. So you're thinking, all right, they kept them scoreless. They had about, 8 or 9 shots and maybe 15 inside 50s. What do you reckon their lead was at halftime? 5 points. 5 points. And I know that you look at the end score, they kicked 10-12. That's not too bad. West Coast kicked 3-12. Why aren't you harping on about them? But it's not about that to me. It's you hold them scoreless, you kick 4 goals in 3 behinds, but it's the time of the game, it's context. And I know you're going to speak about this with your Saints as well, because bad kicking is bad football for me isn't just, they didn't nail their shots and, they kicked, 10 goals, 12. If they had kicked even a quarter of those through the middle, taken a 5-goal lead into half-time, Collingwood, they might not even get back into that game, as great as they are. Away in Brisbane and with everything going on, how much bigger that would have been for them. And then they come out in the third quarter with only that 5-point lead. It's gone almost instantly, and then they lose the game because Collingwood steamroll. It actually really annoyed me because I'm not one of those people like everyone apparently that hates Collingwood. I quite like Collingwood. I think they play a brand of football that is one of the best I've watched in years. But I was like, for Brisbane's sake, I was like, this is it. Because you know how if you follow the pod, you would have heard me say, at the moment, the only thing that I've got stopping Brisbane is their mental demons. At the MCG and against Collingwood and just failing when they shouldn't fail. That's the only thing that stops them because they've got the players on every line. They've got the game plan that works at every part of the field. And they were dominating. I didn't watch the game. Like I said, I was listening on SEN, AFL Nation. But I was listening and I have not heard a side dominate another side like that all year in that second quarter. And just for what was on the line, it just looked as though they wanted to welcome those demons back. They didn't want to get rid of that stuff in their head because that would have done that. If they went in at halftime with a 5 or 6 goal lead, they would be thinking, all right, this is it. All we've got to do now is keep focused on the task and put these guys to bed. And if we win this game, mental demons are gone, we're unlocked, and who's going to stop us now? Their momentum would have been insane. So, yeah, before I bore you guys with ranting all day about Brisbane, I just had one more thing, and I wrote all of this down because that's how annoyed I was at them, Woods. And maybe it might have been their entries, maybe it might have been their forwards not being able to take grabs, but that's still your kicking. So if kicking can be around the field, which I'm sure you'll discuss with your Saints, but all pre-season, all I was seeing externally from Brisbane is we're going to take back what we lost. It's all about getting back. We're going to get back there and we're going to take this back, and we're motivated mentally to take that one more step and take what's ours. We've failed last time and we're pumped up. That's all it was about. And watching them this year and listening to them this year, that is the complete opposite to what I'm seeing on the field. I see no hunger that backs that up at all. So I hate being really critical on them, but their bad kicking comes really close to them taking the award. And in the end, it's pushes them deeper into that mental hole, and I'm not sure they can get out of it now. I don't think if they play Collingwood in a final, if they play a final at G, even against any good opposition. Carlton in that bag now as well. I don't think they can get through it. So they're an honourable mention for me, but obviously West Coast performance on Sunday, I mean, it's a pretty elite performance if you're trying to win this award. There's some, especially in a weekend where the kicking was absolutely putrid across the board. It's actually like it's that bad, Woods. I'm not mad about it. I just find it hilarious, and I don't want to be rude to this team because they've been through a lot, but they won a flag in 2018, so maybe we can be critical. 3 goals, 12. Like, I was there for a half, doing a bit of work, and it was one-way traffic after quarter time, but still, like, I think there was a play, like Jamie Cripps, I think, kicked a 1 goal 4 or 5 or something. It was just like they were magnetising away. 1 goal 5 for Jamie Cripps. 0 goals 2 for Elliot Yeo, and then there was about another 10 blokes with her behind. 3 goals 12. That's got to be a record, and they deserve the mantle this week.
Well, I think this round, I mean, I think you're forgetting one game, but I just want to talk about Essendon and St Kilda. As I mentioned, Riley Bonner, 17 turnovers. I think that right there, you can't be doing that in a game. That's one thing that it kills teams. We were 9-13, so bad kicking there. But speaking to a few Essendon fans there, they were shocked that we weren't 5-6 goals up at any stage in the latter half of the game, but we weren't using the ball right. So it kind of goes, the bad king is bad football, and it really does show. But the game that I was talking about, 13 goals, 25 for the match. Fremantle, Adelaide. And I
don't even know if we want to discuss this one. This makes me sick.
I reckon that was almost going to be the combined award until West Coast turned up and said, if we can't win the premiership, let's win this award.
By the way, that game was under the lid at Marvel as well. So I don't know how they've kicked 3-12 in perfect conditions. But anyway, they achieved it. That game at Optus, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if these blokes just completely forgot that they were playing the highest level of football in the country on a Friday night. But some games are ugly. But Longmuir will say you got to win ugly sometimes, and boy, it was ugly.
Now, we've spoken about the bad. I just want to highlight some of the good football, the good kicking. So these are the positives. Collingwood 14-8. North Melbourne 12-9.
And they're still in the good books, North. And this is why I love them, Woods. This is why they are still a chance to rise this year, because they kicked the footy well. Love to see it.
We've got Carlton 21-11.
Now, I was at this game as well, and I will say it does help when your tall forwards are 5 leagues above the defenders they're playing on. No disrespect to Toby Pink and the other fellas down there, but that was just, the class above from Harry and Charlie on the weekend. That was pretty good to watch.
Now, we've got the Port Adelaide-Melbourne game. Both teams, 13-11 to 15-6.
This is one of those ones where it's really harsh, because you have to be harsh on Port, because if they kicked straighter, they would have won, even though they kicked more of their shots than they missed.
Well,
but Melbourne, that's why they won that game. They converted in the fourth quarter when the game was up for grabs. Bailey Fritsch, precisely. I mean, him especially, because his kicking at the start of the year wasn't great. At the end of last year in the finals, it wasn't great. He's figured that out, and he's one of my favourite goal kickers in the league because his action is so simple. Maybe it's because he's a left footer, and I really trusted him at the end of the game there. So, but that was a great game too.
Yeah. I think
awesome
that highlights though that sometimes you might be in the positive. However, your mistakes. I mean, they kicked 11 behinds. That's
especially in this day and age where footy is so much. If you can play all 3 modes of footy, you're going to be a really good side. Some teams can play, the real fast, like Hawthorn. They can play the real fast, like hell for leather footy, just knock it on, use the handball, like Richmond used to play a few years ago, but they can't really control it. They haven't got enough senior players, good kicks, maturity to control the footy. And you need to be able to do both. So, and that's something that, Sydney do really well. The Giants can turn on and off. And at the same time, you need to, when the ball's in dispute, and you're not sure which way it's going to go or which mode, you need to have that middle. You need to have that, like the yellow traffic light where you can control it when it's in dispute and know if you're taking a green light and going or a red light and stopping. And in this day and age, if you can kick the ball well in all three modes, then that's good football, and that's what I'm talking about, I guess. And Port did that well enough, but just made those mistakes in
I
modes
think Melbourne
at the end.
15-6 at highlights that had they kicked, just say 4 more behinds, then so make it 11-10, they lose the game. So it really does show the importance of good kicking. Going back to a Bulldogs 16-10. Now we had two 50%ers, Sydney 11-11 and Hawthorn 10-10. But I think Geelong 17-4.
And
in wet weather footy as well.
Yeah. The first quarter, maybe, it wasn't raining, but it was really wet. And it does pain maybe the younger me saying this, because I grew up hating Geelong. Kennett Curse, the rest of it, absolutely hated them. But they're a team I really like. And I got to watch them against your Saints at the start of the season. And I think the way that they're playing, Scotty's reinvented it to a touch again, the way they play. The young midfielders have got Bruin and Clark on the weekend. The forwards, like Tom Hawkins, that first goal, there is nothing more I love than a forward that knows his kick. And I don't want to sound like Brian Taylor and go on and on and on about it, but he just knows. So he knows exactly where he has to start it because he trusts that every time it'll drift back left to right. And that's how deep you've got to go sometimes, for the guys in the rut. And it's the same with Fritsch. Fritsch knows that he's basically going to go gun barrel straight, so he knows where to start it. And they just kicked the ball brilliantly. And in conditions, even at the end, when it was an absolute slugfest, you might as well have been down at Poowong. And it was great to see Jai stand up. Country kid, absolute legend, by the way. Hot tip, Jai Newcomb, superstar. Anyway, the Cats play a good enough brand of footy and they can play those three modes, and they did even in the wet. They've impressed me enough to where I've really got them contending again. They've got the pedigree. So for us to get that close, I was actually impressed, really. I was still flat because there was times where, we could have taken the lead and whatnot. But, yeah, what was it?
17-4.
17-4 in conditions basically in a monsoon in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was.
It is remarkable. And like I mentioned before, one of them was handball at the top of the goal square, but 4 goals for the Tomahawk, 4 goals won, is insane for a big fella too. Who's, probably not the quickest in that weather. Yeah, very impressive. Congratulations to them.
Now, obviously, we mentioned Port Adelaide, Melbourne earlier. We got to mention this kid, 200 game superstar, and one of only 6, I believe. I'm just trying to recall if I can.
Yeah, there wasn't many. I think there's a father-son duo.
I did have it.
Yeah.
I could quickly quiz you on who you think they are while I bring
father-son duo to play 200, was it?
Yeah.
I just want to bring up, look at it. If you didn't know who these two blokes were, I reckon anyone on the planet could say, "Oh, that's a father and son." Look at the look-alike here. This is insane.
So we've got him.
I just if you watched trivia a couple of weeks ago, we did a bit of an opinion one with my favourite players in it. This guy is up there. He would be in my top 5. Absolutely love Jack Viney and the way he goes about it. And back in COVID, when they used to play a few replays of the old days, I watched a bit of Todd as well, and it's just like watching the same guy. It was phenomenal.
So, do you have any guesses, first of all?
Spot trivia.
Out of the
Ablets.
Gary? The Ablets are for Geelong, yes.
Gary times 2.
So, it's for the same club.
Oh, same club.
So, I'll give you the clubs. It's Carlton, Essendon, and Western Bulldogs.
Oh, this is going to really test me. Carlton.
If I gave you the number of 1.
Oh, Silvani?
Silvani, yep.
Which ones?
Sergio and Stephen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or Sergio, I don't know how to pronounce.
Cats have another one, do they?
No, Cats you've got.
Oh, right.
So it's Essendon, and Bulldogs. Surely you know the Bulldogs. Surely.
Really?
I'm pretty sure he was in your team as well.
Was he?
Yeah, he's current player.
Oh, man. Oh, Libba.
Libba, of course.
Love Libba.
Now, the Essendon ones you should know.
2 of them.
Yeah, they're in the media.
Watson
Watson is correct.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one.
Tim started playing when he was 16, didn't he?
The other one has also got a son or sons in America.
Oh, Fletch.
There we go.
Yeah,
So
does Fletcher's old man play?
Ken Fletcher and Dustin Fletcher. So there's 6 father-son combinations. There's the 6th.
Love how alike they are too. In game and looks as well. Love that.
They've
Congratulations
got the smile.
to Jack. The Melbourne Footy Club are so lucky to have both these guys. Absolute stars. And yeah, I just got to love a bloke like Jack that can do it all. Always puts his body on the line. And he kicked a snag as well. And yeah, Melbourne can really do anything when they have him and Oliver and Gorney at the peak of their powers. So it was great to see. And yeah, that I don't know if we've got to it yet, but that was my game of the round, that Saturday night affair.
Yeah, I reckon that is a good one. I went Richmond, Sydney, but I reckon Port Adelaide, Melbourne is the one to go for. It seemed like a lot more. I didn't actually watch it because of the St Kilda Essendon game. I just did not want to watch footy.
That's fair enough.
But it
was one of those ones where it actually just kept changing. The lead kept changing and the scores was close basically the whole way through. And it was really end-to-end electric. A lot of contested footy, a lot of outside footy. A lot of people a lot of the media were saying afterwards like that is exactly what you want out of a game of AFL footy. So it's great to see.
Talking about exactly what you want from AFL footy comes to the weekly question. And I want to see, we've actually got the graphic this week. Who can win the flag? And now, obviously, the West Coast Eagles have that big red cross. And I want to know, there's any more teams that I can add the X to?
I'll tell you what. Those Hawks are on the chopping board. I'm telling you that right now.
You're putting the X on them?
I'm not going to put... I'm really torn here.
I reckon we got to put the X on some of these teams.
I reckon I might wait one more week. I'm an ultra-conservative guy. I'm going to wait one more. I think the way that North kick the footy, and I think they've got the best coach. So,
no, not willing to write any other teams.
I'm going to write them in.
We'll wait.
The Hawks. I'll tell you what. If we come out and knock Collingwood off, they might just buy themselves a couple more weeks.
You can put the red X on, and then you can take it off.
I'm not. No.
No. Okay.
Once I put that thing on, she's not coming off.
Well. There we go. That's Boxy's who can win the flag. He's still only got one team on the can't win list. As we go to, it wasn't defended this week, but it is the AFL heavyweight title. It gets defended this week. As I said, it's GWS versus Gold Coast. And then one of our two teams will compete. If Gold Coast win, it's your Hawks. If GWS win, I get a turn at hopefully having St Kilda logos there. But that's just a little update. There was no action this week, so we can't really talk about it. But
a big game too, because both the Giants and the Suns had the bye over the weekend. So they both head to Adelaide for a chance at the belt this gather round, which is going to be an absolute belter.
Talking about gather round, here we go. So what are your thoughts on gather round?
Well, last year I wasn't really... I watched it, and as a Victorian who didn't go... it was just another round of footy for me. But I did like the feel, as someone from the country, I did like the feel of the round and watching it. Like sitting down and watching the Giants and Hawks game, which I think was out at Norwood last year. Ripper game too. We lost in the final minutes thanks to their mark of the year, which was pretty fun from Harry Himmelberg. But I like the feel. It was like the old, community series where they had the pre-season games, and they were all at venues that are maybe your reserves league level or lower. And I absolutely love that because I think that's what our sport's about. I think it's it's not. It might be at the top, and it might be how it runs, but it's not one of those corporate sports like a few of the ones are over in America. It is a grassroots thing, and a lot of people love seeing that country come into it. It's like when they go up and play in Alice and Darwin. Absolutely love that because the crowd's not really in seats; they're all standing around. And as someone watching from afar, which is how I took in last year and how I'll take in this year, I really love that aspect of it, and the even-ish playing field is pretty cool as well because obviously you have Port and Adelaide playing at home, but you can't have a perfect one where everyone's in a neutral territory, but I like that aspect as well. A little bit disappointed that we're not going to have Hawks Collingwood at the G when everyone's booing
Yeah.
Guinea. That would have
Yeah.
been a pretty funny scene.
Well, it would have been a good 190,000 and make it a Hawks home game. They get the cash injection.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind a bit of that at the moment, but
But-
no, it's good. And I think having it this early in the season, like I think round 4 is a
Yeah.
real
I
sweet
think
spot
round 4 to 6 is the area to have it. And
because
I think,
there are some big games.
I think something that I love about Gather Round, and I spoke half about it last week in the breaking news, but it's these jumpers.
Oh yeah,
So you get to
look
see
at my boy in the middle there. Look at that.
like you see the Adelaide one return. You can see GWS there. They've got the one that they'd wear. West Coast are going a bit retro. Freo going with the stealth Guernsey, as I call it, and the Saints, as I'm going to take this off right now.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it.
The long sleeve even.
Oh.
I've held off. He didn't know about this, but
I had no idea. I was wondering why the jacket was on over the top. It's
I
pretty
thought, why
warm in
not?
here.
And I've been sweating, but I thought I'd pick up one of each. Just a little bit of a treat.
That's tremendous. That looks really comfortable as well.
Oh, it is. It's actually like I love the sleeves. I love the sleeves. It takes me back to the Nick Rewalt, Stephen Milne, G Train. I think might have worn this, but I think every team has to do this. Every team just release a jumper, like you wear it a gather round, and it's like a retro round or a special one like Freo do with the stealth. I'd love to see every team do this.
It was hard growing up as a Hawks fan because Clarko is, as most footy followers would know, very against the sleeves. And I used to look over at other teams. They produced jumpers like this and with the sleeves on and the stripes on the sleeves, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like, it's just gorgeous. You'd love to play in it. And yeah, as far as jerseys goes, I like that one. The candy stripe, beautiful that the Saints have brought it back. I think clubs are getting a bit smarter and they know what the people want.
Well, I think the clubs are realising that you look at it, I buy it. You get fans buying it. It's free money.
Yeah.
It basically,
It's basically
I
free
say
money.
this, it's free money, but
I mean, they do it in the NBA, and this is a big, probably a weird comparison, but I'm not saying we get to their point where they seem to be releasing a different, basketball singlet every month. But I am saying that we need more of it, and if it's not that hard, like you say, it is absolutely free money, and it draws more people in. Like, if you're not a follower, you go, oh, that jersey's cool, and then people learn the reason they're wearing it, and they go, oh, and then they get interested. And I mean, none of these, no one can say any of these look bad at all. Like, they're all phenomenal. Can't wait to see West Coast back in that
I was
one.
going to say,
The
I'm going to
stealth one we've
highlight.
seen before, but it's just like Freo, just do something different because, the plain purple and the plain white with the purple stripes is
Yeah.
great. But like that,
Oh,
like
that
adding
looks
black,
man. That looks man. Now West
phenomenal.
Coast.
Everyone knows about the Giants one. Like, it's everybody loves that one. And yeah, I think, like you said, if every club did it for Gather Round, we all know everyone does it for Indigenous Round.
I'm excited to
more
see
the merrier.
West Coast though because they've released that Guernsey, and there's something odd about that Guernsey that they've released to the public. That's the AFL logo. I'm excited to see if they actually play a Guernsey like that with that AFL logo, or are they actually going to have the actual AFL logo? Because I love that the 90s vibe. They need that. Bring that for Gather Round. Like, have a round devoted retro round. Bring back the 90s. I say, have Hawthorn in the diamonds.
I think the Hawks are. I think I did see some whispers over the socials that they're going to bring back a bit of a retro. They did it last year when we did beat Collingwood. They brought the big hawk back.
Yep.
And the long sleeve of that. I saw a photo of the cis this morning. The Hawks just posted that result again, so I got to smile. And the cis was in the long sleeve of that jersey, and that's phenomenal. So, not sure which one. A lot of the clubs do the poll sort of thing and see which one wins. So I think they might be doing that. I think there might have even been whispers that they might bring back the blue and the red with the red stripes.
Well, that's the diamond one that I just said I'd love to see Hawks in Gather Round next year.
But every club's gone through so many jerseys, so everyone's got options, and everyone wants to see it. So keep it up, if you ask me.
Now I am actually gonna take this off. So it's getting a bit warm. But that is Gather Round for us for this year. Hopefully we look back in next week and say how good it was.
Yeah. Well, at that point, I think I might stop getting conservative. It's it'll be 4 rounds done of 24. So that's a genuine marking stick point of the year. And yeah, it all kicks off on Thursday night. Obviously, Adelaide and Melbourne, a huge one. The Crows just have to get going. They had a great year last year. At this stage, it just looks like it was a bit of a fluke as Woodsy takes a breath. Brisbane the same. They host North at Norwood, and that's actually going to be a sneaky, really good game, if you ask me, because North are going to put the foot right onto them at the start. They do tend to start pretty well and then not hung on, which Brisbane sort of do the same as well. My game of the round will be Port and Essendon, because these are two teams. It's like, are you pretending or are you going to contend? Who's sure?
Yeah, you don't know where the mark is for some of them. It's like Richmond St Kilda. And that is a good game now because Richmond just won. Saints coming off. I think, are you pretenders? Are you contenders? It's another kind of benchmark game where St Kilda defeated Collingwood, then lose to Essendon because of their poor kicking. It's like, well, where are you at? Richmond, they could be 2-2 or 2-3 after this week.
I don't think anyone knows where to put Richmond, because after that defeat of Sydney, who are everyone's form team, everyone's like, well, can they actually have a sniff at the 8, or did Sydney just have a mulligan, or what's the go here? But now they have lost a few of their key players, Baker potentially to suspension, and Bolter and Lynch at each end, pretty big losses there. But yeah, and now they play the Saints, so I think that'll be really put them in the quadrant of the ladder that they should be in. West Coast play Sydney at Adelaide Hills down in Mount Barker, beautiful part of the world, and I think that'll be one-sided. I think the West Coast are quite short in that one, but their jerseys will look cool. And Freo and Carlton, which I have no idea why, but it is in the 4:20 time slot at Adelaide Oval.
This is another one where I think you could go game of the round, because they're both near the top, or they both are at the top of the ladder.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways to look at it. You could look at it as going, Carlton might need this, or are they ready because it's a test, because they weren't tested last week. But then you could say the same for Freo, in that they were playing good footy and then it hit a roadblock last week when they just decided to play Auskick. No disrespect to the kids. There's some kids that are pretty good in Auskick. But so it's like which version of each side is going to come out. I just cannot wait. If there's a matchup I want to watch this weekend, it is Alex Pearce and whichever big Carlton forward he takes, because he is taking the mickey at the moment, the Freo skipper. And people were unsure about him over the off-season. Few called that he shouldn't be captain and was a weird selection, and he proved him wrong. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Love how he goes about it, long hair and everything. He's a cool guy, and he's getting it done down there. Luke Ryan, and that defence is great. Hayden Young moving through the midfield a little bit, it's great. And obviously my man who we showed before, Caleb Sarong, Smokey for the Chaz, getting it done. The midfield matchup's going to be huge as well, with obviously Brayshaw and Sarong and Cripper and the likes down there. I heard that, I think Walshy's been training a little bit as well, which will bring smiles to a few Baggers fans who think they've already got a hand on the Premiership Cup. That'll be a great one. Bit weird that it's at 4:20, but I'll be watching it. And then a massive game. It's cat versus dog on Saturday night. The Western Bulldogs and the Cats. That'll be a great one too. I think the Cats are just too good at the moment. I don't really trust the Dogs forward. I think, he was a bit sore, but they ended up playing Bont forward on the weekend, and as we've seen in trivias, if you're following that, he kicks most of their goals these days. So I think they really need a lift at both ends of the ground, because the Cats will be too good there. And then, like we said before, Sunday starts with the battle of the expansion clubs. First place Giants take on the Suns, who, this is down as a home game, but they aren't playing at home. Still unproven on the road, Woods, and they haven't really done much outside of that dream start. So they'll be hungry, but I think if the Giants use their rest well and they play that same sort of footy, they might be a bit strong. And then we've got the Tigers, obviously, against your Saints in the main slot, and then my Hawks against the Pies at Adelaide Oval, 5:10 to finish off Gather Round. Again, the Pies get the last game of Gather Round. you know how it went last year. Hopefully it goes my way this year, but we'll see what happens. The Hawks are obviously down Mitchy Lewis, which is pretty devastating, and the new guy, the Wizard. So could go either way. Hopefully Finn McGuinness comes in, and you know what will happen if he does. But you'll probably know the result by the look on my face to start next week's podcast.
Well, hopefully you're feeling. I don't think you might be feeling better because of Verstappen. Hopefully gets a win, and then you kind of build that momentum up. I don't think you're going to get the win here, though.
Yeah, they're actually going to be at the same time. So obviously you'll mention the F1. Yeah, is back this week. They had the week off between, and to sort of save, I think it's because they want to save emissions and whatnot, even though they're killing the planet anyway. But they're having all the races that are around each other. They're trying to make them all back to back. So obviously the last race was here in Melbourne, and on Sunday it'll be in Suzuka in Japan. So the home race of Yuki Tsunoda, Danny Rick's teammate, and yeah, hopefully Max can get the job done and retake that streak. But I'm not gonna jinx it or anything. I just hope the car works, and if the car works, usually he comes home in first place. But yeah, that'll be at 3:00, and then the Hawks play at 5:20. So it might be a bit of a tight turnaround, but yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed, a bit of a Max 20-second victory into a Finn McGuinness masterclass and a Hawks win. Maybe.
Jack and Evan late goal.
That would be pretty cool. The Adelaide Oval will go off there because you know that the Pies fans are going to travel well. Hopefully a few of ours get over there as well, but, you know, who knows. If it's going to be a great round of footy, make sure you gather round. Starts on Thursday night, like I mentioned, at the Adelaide Oval when the hometown Crows take on the Demons at 7:40.
Now, we've got to talk about cricket, even though it's not summer, and with the T20 World Cup coming up in June, it is time to look at some of the Aussies in the IPL as we can just have a look at some notable performances and seeing who will be there or thereabouts come June. We've had David Warner, 3 matches, 130 runs with a high score of 52. Travis Head, 2 games, 82 runs, including a 62. So our runs, there haven't been many run scorers that I've noticed, but with the wickets, I'll go up. Cameron Green, 2 wickets. Spencer Johnson, 3 wickets. Glenn Maxwell and Pat Cummins, 4 wickets apiece. Now, I know you mentioned something about something that caught your eye with Pat Cummins. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so this guy just wakes up and breathes excellence. And he just cannot lose, it seems like. And he didn't play heaps of a part with the stick, but he played. This is, I think, a week or two, about a week ago, or yeah. So I was going to mention it last week, but this is one of the most insane games of cricket I've actually witnessed. I didn't watch any of it, but I've got sent the scores, and it's quite remarkable. So Pat plays for the Sunrisers Hyderabad, and obviously, a pretty good score in a T20 game, even going back a couple of years ago. If you got 180, you're killing it. If you got 200, 4 years ago, unbelievable. Like, you must have smacked them. These days, each national team, so with all the best players in their country, I think the last series we played over the summer, some scores, even like in New Zealand, where the grounds are tiny, scores of 230, 240, pretty good. They only lost 3 wickets. They scored 277 runs. And you're like, all right, who made the 100? No one made 100. Travis Head, as you mentioned, opened the batting 62 off 24 rocks. So just not messing around, striking 250. And then
a bit of stick cricket.
The number 3, Abhishek Sharma, 63 off 23, playing stick cricket as well. And then the 2 South Africans, Aiden Markram, 42, not out, off 28 balls. And Heinrich Klaasen, you might want to sit in your seat for this one. I know you already are, but 80 off 34 rocks.
Stick cricket.
That is like remarkable.
That's what T20 is about. If you actually think about it, it's about playing stick cricket. I mean, if you know what stick cricket is, it's a computer game or internet game.
Very hard to not hit a 6.
But it's just pinging the ball for boundaries consistently, and it's how you win T20.
And like this, it's not like they were playing a 4th grade bowling lineup. Like there's some big names in here, like Indian nationals. Hardik Pandya, 1 for 46. Jasprit Bumrah, probably India's best quick, 9 for 36. Coetzee from South Africa, 1 for 57. It was just remarkable, and it just caught my eye that, of course, this team did this, and of course, who's the captain? Pat Cummins.
Yeah.
It just happens to him. I can constructively criticise his captaining of our national team or whatever, or his game or whatever he does as much as I want, but this guy just throws it back in my face and just continues to win. It's remarkable. And then they defended. They still gave up 246 runs, so everyone was seeing them like beach balls in this game. Tim David batted for the other side, which was the Mumbai side, Mumbai Indians it was. And he came in at number 6 and made 42 off 22. So he did all he could. But Pat Cummins came out and took 2 for 35 and had the best economy for the match, if you don't mind. So that's not a bad effort from him. Something that I saw. But yeah, in terms of the World Cup, spots obviously mostly still open. My biggest thing would be whether the usuals like Stephen Smith, Labuschagne and the likes get a trip over, or whether they go young with the likes of David and a few more T20 focused players.
Yeah.
Greeny's really worked on his game, so I think he probably gets a seat at this stage. We were talking off air before the show about his century last season in the IPL, and we saw when Josh Hazlewood worked on his T20 game how far it got him. But yeah, I think Head, Warner, pretty surefire. I think another name you could put in there that we haven't really heard. He obviously, I think he retired from first class cricket recently. But I think Matthew Wade might go again. You never really know with him in the T20 arena. But yeah, it'll be David Warner's last one. It will be pretty interesting being in the West Indies. But yeah,
it is in the West Indies and the USA. I think that's something you got to remember. And
none of our games will be in the US, but
okay.
yeah, potentially. I think there might be potentially a few for a few of the other nations. But yeah, the West Indies I don't think had enough ground, so the US are going to host a few in the likes of Dallas and whatnot. So that'll be very interesting viewing.
But I've got to ask you the question right now. Who's going to win it? And are you going to write Australia off just so then you've got that omen of... Australia winning in India, I think nobody saw coming because of the lead up. But are you feeling the same way, or are you going, well, actually, I can't write them off this time because they show you when you write them off?
Yeah, it's
kind of that...
It's interesting. I can't really remember us playing in the West Indies for quite a while. So hopefully they can go over there and acclimatise. Obviously, most of the cricket they're going to play for the rest of the year really is going to be the white ball stuff. So everyone knows that we have the best cricketers in the world in all formats, and that's not a bias, really cocky sort of take. That is just fact. It's been proven. So we're obviously the one-day champions at the moment. I really hope that we do take it really far, because 2022 was one of the biggest letdowns I've seen in sport. Obviously, home T20 World Cup, and we just, stalled at the start line. Never really recovered from that drubbing at the Sydney Cricket Ground against New Zealand, which I was lucky enough to be at. So I just want a bit more of a response this time. I think we can go deep. I think our pool's pretty handy. In our favour, so hopefully we can make it to the finals. I think it's the benchmark, as we've talked about before. And if we make it to the semi or the final, who's to say that it can't be ours?
Yeah, well, I'm very much the same, because as I mentioned, it's like you write them off, they prove you. If you have faith in them, that's generally when they let you down. So it's kind of that 50-50 of I have faith, but at the same time, I'm very wary that. Oh, Nat, is this the time where it's going to be like the home T20 World Cup where they just let you down? So I'm going to have faith right now and say, yes, we'll make semis. But to win any type of World Cup in cricket, you have to be switched on from the get-go and till the very end. So if they're able to do that, and you mentioned the Smith and Labuschagne, I'm interested to see that dynamic, whether we go the new blood now or whether we go, okay, this is basically the end of the era for this old guard, and it's so many factors that play into it. But exciting times with the IPL, and I'm sure we'll be keeping a close eye on it every few weeks. As you said, it's been going on for a few weeks now, and so hopefully 2 matches in for some players is not really a true indicator of their form, so we can't really pick a side right now, but I'm sure come near the end of May, there will be a side selected, so maybe mid-May or early May we can look at our own selection. But what else has been happening in the world of sport and has been making you flat if I just look up to the TV now, just look up there for a second? How does it make you feel knowing you witnessed history?
Yeah, well, look, all I'm going to say here is that I could go on another rant and I could be really negative, but I feel like I got all that out on the Lions, and maybe it was unwarranted. And look, Melbourne United had a phenomenal season, and yes, I do feel like when I'm saying that, I feel like I'm a Golden State Warriors supporter in 2016.
I was going to say, you feel like you're sounding like a St Kilda supporter from 2009. We had such a great year, yet there's no silverware in the cupboard that actually says we were the best.
What I do want to say, and what I will say, is that I must know basketball because I basically predicted exactly what was going to happen. I hoped it wasn't really a prediction in that I was saying they just need to fix this, they need to do this, I hope they do this, and they didn't. But I just had this overwhelming fear. I was really anxious, and I just knew it would happen, and it happened again. And if you watched last episode, you'll know that I went on and I said, all you got to do is just be the bigger brother, like kill him inside, like feed JLA inside. You've got Hook Porty. They didn't have this is the thing about this team. They're just, I could not applaud them anymore if I tried because they deserve this. They were playing without their number one big. They were playing without a genuine, world beater, superstar, MVP, like they had nowhere near as many first teamers as Melbourne United. They didn't have the award winner of, Shea Ely or a, all-timer in that I think, in Chris Golding. Didn't matter to them. Like they were so undersized. Like Magnay was injured. He could barely jump. And Joe Luala-Chul just apart from, they came out really hard. And the first quarter, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. They've listened to me. Like, this is exactly what you want. They were pounding it inside. That JLA dunk at the start, everything, like the whole place was going crazy. The Jack Jumpers couldn't score. And I'm going, they're putting the foot on them. This is all you had to do. They did it in game one, and they haven't done it since, but they're back. This is what they did all year. This is why they barely left that top position all year. And, of course, it didn't last. Of course, as soon as the fourth quarter started and the Jack Jumpers were vaguely close, all of United's 5 just lost all confidence and were indecisive. Every time they went into their offensive set, just completely scared. And that's not to mention who, I take my hat off here to the little fella. Jordan Crawford, no, I'm kidding. You star. I mean, the guy was the shortest on the court by a country mile. And he had a horrible game 1. He had a horrible game 2. He was not in the series at all. And he had, correct me if I'm wrong, but he had 27 at the half. Like that, and it was because, again, like I said, like they did in game 4, like they did in game 2 and 3, just finding space so easily. And all it took was a screen at the top, and all of a sudden he's in 5 acres of space, and he didn't miss. And it's like, obviously, if you're giving guys open shots off the screen, he's going to take them, and he's going to hit them if he's that hot. Well, so it was a bit annoying, but I saw it coming because United, in short, looked like a team that were worried about losing because it was all up to them. Like they'd been the team that ran the season. They'd been the team on top. They were the team at home. And it looked like they were going, I hope we don't lose, against a team that's going, well, we lose, whatever. We've been here before, we've lost. We've only been in the comp 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. We don't care. We don't even care who's on the court. we're just going to go at 100%, play with heart, and all of a sudden we've got this team scared. And they all went from high and mighty at the end of the regular season to, oh, we're so scared, we don't know how to play offense in the fourth quarter. And for someone who's a supporter, I was watching it with my lovely partner, Soph, and she was screaming at the TV more than me because the mistakes that United were making, the shot selection in the fourth quarter was putrid.
Well, just looking at the scores in the last quarter, it was 70-61 at one stage. And then Doyle sank a free throw and then missed one.
And Milton Doyle, who is probably wouldn't be too wrong in saying easily their best player, was having an absolute stinker. And then United just decided to leave him space, let him get going. Like not stay on him, not put him into the ground, let him get going. And he's that sort of player that if he sees it go through on a free throw, he's on. He's fine. Like it's all behind him. And that's what the Jack Jumpers are about. So, hats off to you. It's
70-62 at that stage, and at this stage we had a group chat. One very happy. He wasn't happy at the time, and I'll give him a shout out.
Resident
Tasmanian Jack Jumper, number one fan,
biggest supporter I know.
He goes, congrats United fans, well done. And then Crawford, he makes a 3-foot shot. And then he makes a 28-foot three-pointer to bring the score 70-67. And I think, I don't know if anybody mentioned, but it's not game over yet. Enter a few things. And Jack Jumpers, I think from that point on, could smell. The game was there to be won.
And it's over. Because if the Jack Jumpers have a sniff, and this is how the whole series went, you got to put them away before the fourth quarter, because if you give them a sniff, they'll come all the way back. And sometimes it needs a miracle, like Jack McVeigh's shot that he'll hit 1 in a million in game. What was that? Game 2, game 3. And sometimes it'll just be that they run over the top because they're just energy, and you can see that exudes from Scott Roth, who I think is almost undoubtedly has to have his name in the history of the NBL as one of the most historic coaches. He might not be the best ever. He's only done a couple of years, but what this guy's done, he's brought this team down to an island that it's just starved for sport. Yeah. Packed the joint out every game since, and he's got a group of guys in a completely new place that have never really played together too much, and he's taken them to be an absolute force. And they're the teams you're always scared of, but they're the teams you love deep down. And this is where I've got respect for them. And this is why I was really pumped to come on and do the podcast, because I actually love the Jack Jumpers. I actually love them. Like, if we'd lost to Perth, I'd probably just be pissed off.
I don't like Perth. I don't like Perth as much.
But I love the Jack Jumpers because I love teams in any sport that can finish wherever they want and still make real damage, because their identity is to not care when, not care who, just try and win. And if they come up short, all right, because we gave everything at least. And I don't think United can say that, because it wasn't their best in the fourth quarter. It was their best in the first quarter. They hang on for the second and third. And in the fourth quarter, they were just doing things that are just dumb. Like Dellavedova, his shot selection in the fourth quarter for a guy that's won NBA championships. I did expect better. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, full credit to the Jackies. Just phenomenal club. They deserve that championship. I'm a little flat for you that they got it before the Phoenix, but they're just a phenomenal club, and they don't need star players because that's their identity. But I do want to give credit to my man, Chris Golding, playing on one leg. The guy gave absolutely everything. He's not credited as an amazing defender over the journey. But his defensive acts in the last couple minutes, if he doesn't make them, United just get blown away.
Yeah.
Even to the last second where Daly did get that half-court shot, it was unlikely. But he got that steal. He was knocking the ball away in crucial times on both ends, and he wasn't fully fit. And that's exactly what you get out of CG. And it just made me flat, mostly because you're not going to get that season again. It's not like he's going to rock up next year and do that again, because the lineup's going to look so different. I think Illy's coming I don't want to retire him here, but I think he said, there probably isn't too much more. Hook Porty's gone. Like, Hook Porty will be in the NBA. Like, he's already going back to Germany. He's preparing for the draft. Who knows what Daly's going to do? You know that CJ's going to be there. But, like, a lot of the lineup are world basketball quality players. They're American basketball quality players. So that was really it. And I think that's another thing where sport's so up above the shoulders. It was another thing that probably got to them like, oh, this is it. We're not going to, after this, it's nothing. Whereas for the Jack Jumpers, it's like, oh, we'll come back next year. We'll just try and win this one. Like, and when you're playing with complete freedom in any sport, any team, at any part of any standings, you are dangerous and you are hard to play against. And that's what the Jack Jumpers are and always have been. So congratulations. I'm going to be honest, after that Daly shot hit the glass and bounced off, I turned the TV off and went for a run. But so I didn't see who ended up winning the MVP or who, I didn't see them hoist the trophy because I couldn't watch that part. But what a season.
Think you could ever do that in a losing side, but
what a season though. Just from start to finish.
I've got a few points I just want to make on what you've said, and I think it's really the Tasmanian identity has to come into play here. You can talk about Melbourne, Perth, Sydney, where they've got sporting codes. So they kind of get lost in the shuffle, I guess. Tasmania Jack Jumpers have really forged as being the Tasmanian team.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say that the Melbourne United is the Victorian team. I mean, you've got Southeast Melbourne, Phoenix, and Melbourne United, but you've got other sporting codes to compete with at the same time, whereas you mentioned Jack Jumpers sell out all their games at home. They have that identity, and it's something that I think, you can't replicate it in Melbourne. You can't replicate it in Sydney. You can't replicate it in Perth. So the fact that they've come out and been so competitive so early on, and now we're sitting here 3 seasons in, or however many seasons in, and they're the champions, it really goes to show that, wow, like, they're smart, and you can kind of relate it to footy. Footy have to follow the same path that the Jack Jumpers did to create that identity of being the state's team rather than just being another team in the AFL.
Well, I think it's going to upset a few people because this football team will play the same way, because this is one of the most passionate sporting states I know. And they've been held without anything for years. And obviously when you suppress a group this much, especially in sport, which people underrate how much it unites people. Like, it's people's lives. And you could see that when the Jackies won. They travelled so well. Like, they inundated Melbourne for that series. And, yeah, like, you've held them so long. Once this footy team gets going, even if it's a bunch of 18-year-olds, like, they'll give teams scares because the stadium will be loud. I don't care how big it is, because you can't replicate that hunger, like you say. And hunger is so important in sport, and they all play with heart. And they cop it a bit, like the butt of jokes and whatnot. But you can't, in my opinion, you can't be Australian without loving Tasmania and everything about it. I haven't been down there in a while, but it's a great part of the world. And they've got so much sporting talent. I mean, the Tigers out of nowhere made the Sheffield Shield final. Yes, it was off, some tremendous individual seasons, but that's just what they can do. And yes, not all of the players come straight from Tassie and play for them, but when you play for a team that represents a place that's been, not suppressed, but without something to, bite into and cure their hunger for so long, you're gonna feel so well supported, and you're gonna develop that Tasmanian identity. So congratulations to the Jackies. They did what the Tigers couldn't in the Sheffield Shield final, but it's just sport in Tassie. How keen would they be? Because they don't have to wait too much longer, Woods.
It's got a great decade ahead, and I think I'm excited to see Jack Jumpers again going around next season. I'm excited to seeing the NBL next season.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully, Southeast can do better than what they've done, but I think, once again, I will bring up
only
the case.
way is up from the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, it's more so it's creating that identity. Southeast Melbourne were very in particular in trying to create that Southeast Melbourne feel where it's hard when people are already United fans, or then they've got so much other sport that they can kind of digest. Whereas Tasmania have worked it well. Well, what else is there? There's cricket. Isn't really the same level, in terms of how much sport is available to them. And so, as I said, it's like, well, Tasmania, I think the NBL knew that the market was there and strong, and therefore Tasmania have really hit the nail on the head in the way they approached it and the way they've marketed themselves as being Tasmania's team. And going back to Southeast Melbourne, I just wish that was a bit more evident. I think the fact that you had the bigger brother in United have gone so well over Phoenix's existence, it kind of hurts because, I mean, you can't kind of win people over, or the neutrals that will go for the Melbourne team just because they're whatever team the Melbourne team is. It's Melbourne United. Oh, I'm going for that team. They don't think about the other teams. So my point is, Tasmania, well done. Well done on marketing yourself. Well done on showing up on court when you've proved yourself to be the best team in the NBL. And hopefully it won't be too long till I'm saying the same thing about Southeast Melbourne.
Well, I reckon if Creaky sticks around, if he's still playing for you in the 55, you might be all right. But yeah, hopefully United can put another roster together next season. But you gotta really applaud what a remarkable season it was. Like I said before, really planting that foot down as the second best league in the world. I mean, the NBA is not going to be rivaled, but Europe had the mantle. Asia, there's some pretty good leagues over there, but the NBL is phenomenal at this point in time. It is definitely back. And in case you were wondering, what backs that up for me is the finals. And I mean, there was about 14 games from the play-ins to that Game 5. 2 of them, were decided by more than 10 points. That is just phenomenal. Both semis series went to 3 games. The grand final series went the full distance and was almost won again in the final seconds. I mean, just remarkable. And the team that didn't even finish in the top 2 had to play their way in, took out the championship against a team that was not moved from the top spot all year. So as a sports fan, remarkable. As a United fan, disappointing. But what great hands the NBL is in. And couldn't be happier for basketball in Australia, which is, it's great. I can't wait as well to see the Boomers line up as well, Olympic year. So keen for that. That'll be over in Paris. But something else that is overseas is Aussies Around the Ground Woods. And it's a pretty packed segment. It was looking pretty short until I come in this morning and heard about a few Aussies doing some great things. But it's weekly wonder time first. And I will say, I might be breaking the rules here a little bit.
So which Australian did this?
So this is an Aussie fella, but if I can make the link and you see his name down there, I did find out about this from Ned Brockman, who I had the pleasure of. I actually just finished his book. So like I mentioned, doing the 75 hard. So I thought you need to read a book for it. It's one of the rules. There's a couple rules. It's a fitness challenge basically. And I read Ned's book. And I knew about him before, as most Aussies did. If you somehow you didn't hear about him, the bloke ran across Australia from Cottesloe Beach to Bondi, some 3,900 kilometres over 47 days, which is incredible and mind-numbingly remarkable in itself. I couldn't to the normal person, probably just you can't even comprehend it. But he did that. So the other day on Instagram, I saw that Ned shared this. So since Ned's finished he did a couple of years ago, I can't use that as my weekly wonder, but I'm using this. And this is a fella by the name of Russ Cook. And I think he's nuts. But I also think that this is a weekly wonder. It might not be an Australian weekly wonder, but this is for human history. Because you see this map here, and you think, okay, yeah, he must be driving through there, or he might be, riding a bike's even pretty crazy. The bloke's running that. This man is running.
How long?
He's running from the bottom to the top of Africa. No one has ever done this.
I've just seen what day he's up to. That is insane.
So you see on that post right there, so this one is from 3 days ago. He's now 347 days through. So this one from 3 days ago, when he was 347 days, so nearly a whole year. 376 marathons. He's raising money for charity, and every day he's running on this route, and he's just racking up the kilometres. So here's a bit of a split. So this is between 337 and days 337 and day 342. And I'll read out what he ran. So 337, 70 kilometres, 69 kilometres, 72 kilometres, 28, 76, 74. So he's trying to be obviously the first man to ever run from the bottom to the top of Africa. I haven't really got many words for this, but how the bloke hasn't stopped yet, it's just, yeah, it really messes with your head to comprehend that the human body is capable of such a thing. But yeah, as we speak, he's 347 days through, and he's got 5 days to go. So he's nearly at the top. He's almost about to be the first human on record to run from the bottom to the top of Africa. 350 odd days, nearly a whole year. And yeah, he's a British fella, but he's got a big red beard just like yourself, Woods. So it's great to see. All the best to Russ, or Hardest Geezer as he goes by, as you can see there. That is as big of a weekly wonder as I've ever seen. And like I said before, it's really something that should be captured by world media, because it's an incredible feat of human, ability to know that the body can put up with running for 300 plus days from one end of one of the biggest continents in the world to the other. So that's my weekly wonder for this week. Russ Cook, 5 days away from becoming the first man to run from the bottom to the top of Africa. Moving on now, I've heard whispers off air with a few of our supporters or extra time teammates this morning. We've got a few Aussies strutting their stuff in the NCAA. So first of all, I've got this lady, Georgia Amor. I hope I've said that right. And she's been tearing apart the NCAA women's basketball comp for Virginia Tech, the Hokies. Pretty cool t-shirts, the Hokies. I've got one of those in my vintage collection, Woods. She averaged 19 points and 7 assists for the Hokies, which is good numbers if you know college ball. 2-time All-Conference first-team selection. And she, at the moment, after making the Final Four in the NCAA tournament last year, so not this edition. This year, I think they made it to the round of 16, maybe. I heard that off air from Slow-Mo before. He'll be able to correct me when we finish up. But she, at the moment, obviously coming up on a pretty big decision. So with COVID, if you understand college, it's just like most university degrees in Australia. You usually get 4 years, and she's obviously a student athlete. So you get a scholarship, 4 years you can play at the college. Obviously, when COVID happened, a bit of that was taken away. So she is eligible to go back to Virginia Tech or another college and play one more year as a extra senior, because she has finished her 4 years. But she's also been touted as a first-round draft pick in the WNBA. So that's her decision at the moment. She has, I think, entered the portal, but she's deciding whether to go to the big leagues or play one more year of college. We're not sure what she's going to do, but we wish her all the best to Georgia and congratulate her on a pretty remarkable college career. The next one is a fella named Travis Bazana, and he's playing for the Beavers, Oregon State. And our baseball expert, Simone Wern, was telling me about him before, someone she's actually familiar with. He's from Sydney, and he's doing quite well. And he's also, I think, looking to break it into the big leagues, into Major League Baseball over there. I'm not a massive baseball guy, Woods, but to see an Aussie in there in any form of American baseball would be pretty exciting. So all the best to Travis. As I said, he's been playing for Oregon State, and he's a junior from Sydney.
I'm sure we'll follow up on his stats as the season goes on. Obviously, Major League Baseball has also started, so there's a bit of Australians maybe playing in that. I think Curtis Mead, if I'm not mistaken, is also playing in the major leagues for Tampa Bay. And as it's just still early seasons, we're just going to wait and see how they're going. We can highlight them as the season goes on.
Now, I've just got one thing here. I've just added this in right now as I've almost forgotten it. But there's not too much NFL going on at the minute. But I did want to post this, which I came across the other day. The NFL Australia New Zealand posted this. And it was a comment that our man Cam Johnston's new head coach Mike Tomlin made during the week when they asked him about Jono. Jono obviously was injured a little bit last year, but punted for the Houston Texans on their miraculous run from basically the bottom to almost the top under the rookie CJ Stroud. And then, like I said a few episodes ago, Jono got traded or released and moved on basically to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And his new coach, Mike Tomlin, who actually has never had a losing season, is his famous record, he made a comment about Jono during the week, and it was that he was the belle of the ball woods in terms of the market. So he was the best in the punting market, and we are glad to have him. So it's great to see that support that his new head coach has of Jono. Hopefully he can get to work and start booming some punts in Steel Nation alongside your old quarterback, Russell Wilson, and a few others. So congratulations to Jono, and it was great to see Mike Tomlin hype up his punter, who is an Aussie, obviously, as well. But finally, if you caught the end of last week, and you know me at all, a massive, very proud country kid, and a very proud supporter, commentator, player, coach, whatever. I've done everything, really, for the West Gippy footy competition, footy netball comp, which kicked off on the weekend, but something that I just had to put in a bit of a local weekly wonder was I got to interview the great man Prime Train. If you're a footy follower and you're over, social media, you'll know this fella. You might think that, he's a bit of a left field guy. He's a bit of, all about himself, but that could not be less true. He is one of the best people I've met, especially for having such a following that he does, and for having so many people not support what he does. He was, completely the opposite. Amazing guy. Just straight up when I met him, just asked about me, how I'm going, how I got into the job. And he's just all about the people. He brought in thousands to Phillip Island on the weekend, which, for country footy is phenomenal. Would have done so much for that club, which, I could not be more proud of Phillip Island and of Prime for doing that. He had so mumuch time. We were trying to do interviews and we were trying to have a chat to each other, and kids kept coming up to him, and not one time did he say, go away, or, in a second, or, threw them off, which a lot of people can do with this sort of fame, I guess. He stopped for every single kid, gave everyone at least a high five, and he did that every second he was at the club. And I can't speak higher of the guy. Awesome fella. Love what he's doing. I think we need more of this in footy because, he's supporting local footy. He's going on a massive footy tour this year. He's going as far as London, I think. And, just bringing people to the footy. Obviously, I got a sneak peek in his game day vlog, which was pretty cool. Great as well that he supported Phillip Island, promoted a few small businesses, which is great. And the league just loved having him. And he's, been fully supportive. Great fella, really fun dude. And by the way, he kicked 8 sausage rolls for Phillip Island.
He kicked 8. Yeah.
Against Warragul, the Warragul Industrials, who are not a slouch of a team by any stretch. And a couple of his goals, we're talking boundary line 50 metres out from the set shot. So he can play, if you're wondering. He can play, Tommy Bolch, and he's a great guy to match. But like I said before, his footy journey this year started with Phillip Island on the weekend. And then he goes up to New South Wales, Ballarat, back to New South Wales, Tassie, Barallan, Kalgoorlie, New York, London, Adelaide, Harry Warren, Geraldton, I think it's in WA, Hyatt, Scotland and Ireland Woods.
So it definitely is a world tour.
It is a world tour for Tommy Prime Train, and I wish him all the best. But the other game of the weekend was down at my hometown of Inverloch, and the Inverloch Conwack Seagulls got the job done. I was very pumped to get back and call that one. It was a great game of footy. So great to see country footy back around the nation, and hopefully everyone can get some more wins on the weekend. we have the bye, so no one's playing for us on the weekend. So I might go and see if I can see any other footy around or just watch a bit of gather round. But I hope you can join me in that, watching a bit of sport. There's plenty this weekend, like we said. The NBL's over, but the F1 is back with the Japanese Grand Prix. Gather around to keep your time up as well. Bit of NBA and the rest of it around the world. Make sure you like and subscribe, and if you have anything you reckon we could talk about, anyone we've missed, let us know as well, and we'll see you next Wednesday.